Mark Lewis has been the PA announcer for Edmonton Oilers games for the past 35 years. He's seen it all. Multiple championship seasons, 4 cup wins on Edmonton ice, and of course the 81 and 84 Canada Cups. Mark unveiled to Oilers fans last week that at the end of this season he will hang up his mic. Pleased to have Mark Lewis with us this afternoon. Mark, how are you?
Jeremy, if it were any better, there'd be something illegal going on.
You know, you've had quite a bit of a response and support into your decision to hang up the mic from Oiler fans, not only on the street but on social media. I mean, what has the outpouring of support meant to you?
You know, it's really nice, Jeremy, to be serious. It's really nice that you can see evidence that, you know, people are supportive of your move. They understand for the most part. You know, after 35 years, it's just time to move on and do something else. And we want to do something else in the winter, my wife and I. But, you know, it's absolutely been outstanding from the night that, you know, I gave a sweater to a season seat holder on the Once an Oiler, Always an Oiler feature, and to see the kind of enthusiastic response that people showed that night, and just the phone calls, and as you say, you know, on Twitter and on Facebook, the response has been it's been all positive. That thanks a lot. We've enjoyed your contribution 35 years with the Oilers, and as I say, really it's time to move on and do something else in the winter.
Let's go back to 1981, 35 years ago. How did you get the job as the Oilers PA announcer?
Well, I was working at another Edmonton radio and TV station. I started with them in the mid-'70s, and I was still there you know, through the 80s. But in 1981, at Rexall Place, you have 2 PA announcers, and one of them moved to Saskatchewan and had a position in a radio station over there in management. And I thought, well, this would be a great time for me to phone Bill Tuwilli, who was in charge of communications and PR with the Oilers, and I said, Bill, I'd be interested in talking to you about that public address position that has just come open. And he said, well, we need someone for the Canada Cup in 1981, and if it works out, we can bring you on with the Oilers, but you have to know how to pronounce Czechoslovakia, and at that time, Czechoslovakia was a country. It hadn't split into 2 countries. And Russian and Finnish and Swedish, you really have to be familiar with how to pronounce those names. And I did not have a clue how to pronounce those names. But I said, Bill, I'm your man. You know, there was no internet that you could go on and check, you know, the lineups for Team Sweden or Team Czechoslovakia, or as it was called then, the Soviet Union. So you had to rely on you know, the trainers or visiting sports reporters. But that's how it all started, and then they said, well, come on back. Training camp starts in September, and the season starts late September, if I can recall, in 81, and 35 years later, here I am stepping down.
You know, Mark, back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, names like Wayne Gretzky, Yeri Curry, Mark Messier, that must have been awesome for you.
Well, you know, all these players that I got to know most of them on a very casual basis. And, you know, to see so many of them go into the Hall of Fame and to see so many of those players achieve significant things in the National Hockey League, that it's only when you look back do you see how good the team was, and the teams were that won all those Stanley Cups. And, you know, you look at what Gretzky did, you know, the number of career goals and career assists and the number of career games and all the honors he won. We may not see that player... I may not see that player again in my lifetime, and it was just absolutely outstanding to be part of that during the 80s, early 90s, and you know, the Oilers may have been one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the entire history of the National Hockey League.
Mark Lewis on the show this afternoon. Of course, 35 years he's been the PA announcer for the Oilers down at Rexall Place. Mark, you're a staple when it comes to the Oilers. For those that have been to the games, hearing that voice, partly what makes Rexall Place and the Oilers great. You know, other than checking out games every night, what made your job fantastic?
Well, you know, the people I work with, you know, if you enjoy doing what you're doing for a living, a big part of it, more often than not, is the people you work with. If you're working with a bunch of people that would give a woodpecker a headache on a good day, then you're not going to enjoy your job as much. But if your colleagues are pretty good people, you know, that's such a huge part of it. It can make your job interesting and stimulating. And if you get paid for doing something you love, now, isn't that a bonus?
Mark, before we let you go, I got to hear a classic call.
The Oilers' goal, his 50th of the season, scored by number 99, Wayne Gretzky.
One of the best PA announcers in the NHL today. It's been a great 35 years. Enjoy the rest of the season, and thanks so much for doing this, Mark.
Jeremy, it's been my pleasure, and all the best to your audience today.